dance for joy or lust or anger, and every time you haven't got it.
A show that features cars that are over 15 years old, but you can buy for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 1981 Triumph Acclaim HLS, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I've just put my window up a little bit, hopefully the sound is a bit better. The Acclaim was released back in 1981. It was the first collaboration between what was then British Leyland and Honda, as well as the last car to bear the Triumph name. Controversial car at the time, of course. It's all Honda engineering in here. This 1.3 litre engine is called the EN4 engine. It's a single overhead cam 8 valve engine that was also used in some versions of the contemporary Honda Civic, the second generation Civic that would be. In this application it develops around 71 horsepower. There was also a 3-speed auto available with the Acclaim, which was called the Trio-matic, although it's really just a Honda-matic gearbox. The trim levels available were L, HL, like the one that my neighbours used to have when I was younger, HLS, like this one, and then the CD, which was the really fancy one with things like electric windows and electric mirrors. Above that there actually was an Avon Acclaim, which was available both with this normal 1.3 engine and also a turbocharged version of the same unit. To drive this is very easy. It does remind me very much of the SD3 Rover 200 that we had on No Budget Reviews actually about a year ago. I do apologise, by the way, but my mount is shaking more than it normally would. I don't have my normal mount today. This test drive has sort of come along at rather short notice. Lloyd Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. You would have seen this car probably in quite a few of the sort of shambolic shuffles that I've done on my channel, because its owner, who's called Matthew, has actually been to lots of the same events that I've been to. It's a very early Acclaim, this. It actually still has its original dealer plates on it from Lexmead of Bristol, and it's done just over 30,000 miles from new. Until 2019 it was actually in the care of the original family. Couple bought it in November 1981. It was built in September and registered in November, so it's actually a car that predates the official launch of the Acclaim, which is in October 81. But of course it was brought to the dealer just after that, so I imagine that the couple who bought this car originally would have ordered it. It would have been a new exciting car on the market, very different from whatever they'd owned before. Again, original dealer plates on the back. The HLS was the second from the top trim on an Acclaim, but it still wasn't that luxurious in a way. These early HLSs, and by the way, this car, as far as we know, has still got original paint on it. There's no respray or anything that have gone on. Doesn't have the head restraints. They actually were an option on this car originally. There were some very minor changes made to the Acclaim during its production life between 81 and 84, but this is as original spec they came, I think, something called a launch spec. The fluffy dice, of course, weren't part of the original equipment. Classic Honda in here, although there are some changes. The door mirrors, for example, are on the doors and not on the wings. The seats are Morris Italia frames. Earlier information used to say that these were Ford Cortina frames were actually Morris Italia frames. Earlier type of steering wheel, they did change that later on. And the most obvious change inside would have been the heater controls were a little bit different. Wonderful kind of quartz clock in here, absolutely amazing. Choke, of course, it's a Honda, I think it's called the EN4 engine, generating about 70 horsepower. Rev counter, which is very posh for a car like this from 1981. And a full comprehensive package of instruments, as John Davis used to say, from Motor Week. He obviously wanted an oil pressure gauge and things like that. Really strangely, the wiper stalk and the indicator stalk, which are on what a lot of people call the correct side, they're actually completely different. They're not mirror images of each other at all, which is really, really strange. Down here we've got the headlamp leveling switch. Choke is there. No fuel injection, of course, on one of these. And then there's a very early example of the thing that went through right away to the Rover 45s, which was a little lever that you could pull for fresh air ventilation from these vents in the middle there, regardless of what temperature you set the heating to. Rated window switch and follower switcher down there. Coin tray, which I'm delighted to see because my Rover 45's got one of those as well. And also down here on the floor, we've got first ever sort of British Leyland 2 MG Rover car that actually has remote controls like that for the fuel filler flap and the boot. Lasted all the way to the end with the 45. Dual horn pushes in this, 5-speed manual again, and a car like this would not have been expected really, especially on the base model L, but this had that all the way through, as well as the 3-speed Triumph gearbox option, which was a Honda Matic automatic. You get that too. This car actually even has internally adjustable mirrors, although if you want real luxury you could buy the CD model that had electric windows and electric mirrors, which is something I'd like to get hold of at some point, viewers, but this'll do. Very nicely trimmed, no wear really on the interior, everything works. Headroom is really quite interesting because I'm only 5'11" and my head's actually brushing the ceiling. So rather like one of these Protons that I've featured on my channel recently and owned, you can't be really tall and drive one of these particularly comfortably. It's not really the thing that happens. Original stereo here, Triumph branded. I don't think that's an FM unit, I think that's just an AM unit actually. Let's have a look in the glove box. Fit plenty of stuff in there, and it even gives you the tyre pressures and things like that, but I'm not sure my secret mission documents are going there. The T-shelf is in operation there. Those of you who are fans of Mr. Richardson's Furious Driving channel will be aware of that. And he actually did drive one of these, I think also in Buckinghamshire where we are. A couple of years ago now, I think it was. Right, well let's use this little pop down here and have a look in the boot. All I can say for you is be careful when you get out of one of these because I bashed my head on the way out. It's not the biggest boot ever. I think it's a little bit shallower than the replacement, the Rover ST3 or 213, 216, which again was based on a Honda Ballard, a variation of the contemporary Civic, which this also is. It's a little bit on the shallow side. The boot opening's not great, but I think really it's maybe slightly better than the original ST3s, which had a less of sort of space to getting in. And also if you go back, you can see it's quite reasonable in terms of the space. I'm not sure if you could fold the seat. It looks like you actually probably could. I don't know, viewers, though. You'd have to enlighten me in the comment section. Again, original leader plates and sticker. This car was formerly on the Classic Car Loan Project, and then Matthew Owens actually bought it off the Classic Car Loan Project, which is great. just amazing to see something in this sort of condition. I don't think there are many claims that are left like this. In fact, there aren't many claims left at all. There are less than 100 apparently left. And you know, when I think about growing up, well, as I did right next to one of these, the other drive, it just shows just how rare they are. Right, we'll just move this lovely Rover branded umbrella out of the way. I think it's going to be a bit cramped in here, viewers, I have to say. The seat adjusted for Matthew's a bit shorter, so put my head down. So yeah, my head's touching the incredibly nice condition headlining. My knees are up against here. I wouldn't really want to go too far in this, particularly as we don't have any rear seat belts in here. But I suppose I could go on a short journey or something like that. That would probably be okay. Windy windows, of course, and no central locking, but that's just the way that it went. Those seatbelts are going out of a metro, aren't they? Forgot to show the little luxury here. Little ashtray. So here we are, viewers. This is the Honda, I think it's called the EN4 engine. You see the bonnet opens the opposite way from everything else, but then there's only the Dolomite, so no surprise here if you would be a long-term Triumph owner. Generating around 70 horsepower. The carb on here is different, it's not the same as the Japanese spec ones. Good to see you've actually got a brake servo on there. It wasn't a guarantee on cars this size really at the time. Some of them didn't have servo brakes. Looks all reasonably accessible. Of course, it's probably turned the other way from all the other engines. It's probably why it's on this side rather than the other side. It's closer to this side. But yes, it's again amazing condition of this car. Just astonishing how there's virtually no rust on this, and all the paint's original, no dents, nothing. Just testament to the original couple who own this, and of course to Matthew who has it now. One thing everyone seems to say about the Acclaim, and it's no real surprise that they do, it's just how easy the car is to drive. This 5-speed Honda gearbox is really nice and light, the clutch is really light. The steering is not power assisted, but it is still really light. It's very easy to handle. Visibility is pretty good as well. Possibly in the old Dolomite, which came before this, the visibility might have been even better, but actually this is fine. The 5th gear is nice and easy, there we go. I can see why someone would have just gone into a showroom in 81 and thought that actually this was a really good car to have. These actually generated the lowest running costs ever in terms of warranty, the warranty costs in all the history of British Leyland. So very much a car that you could depend on. These days prices of them are actually a lot higher than they used to be. You really need about £3,000 for a nice one, and that's even if you can find one of these at all, because there just aren't many around. Matthew, who owns this car, has been very blessed that actually he was able to get this off the Classic Car Loan Scheme itself, and just 31,000 miles on the clock. It feels almost new to drive. It's absolutely amazing. You need to use a bit of choke when starting off, and the clutch does bite a little bit high in this example, but for a car from this age, it's remarkably well behaved. I imagine the 2nd generation Civics were equally well behaved actually when they were sold over here briefly in the early 1980s. There's nothing here that's going to just scare anyone at all. It's easy to see why this car was chosen to be the first of this long list of collaborations that they had right up until effectively 2005, because the Rover 45, for which I own an example, actually was based on the early 90s Civic via a car called the Damani, which would have been the sort of equivalent of the Ballard, but this is based on the saloon Civic that was not sold in this country. I absolutely love this car. I mean, it would be even better for me if it was a CD, but because my neighbours used to own one, they used to travel in one of these, it's been probably 30 to 35 years I've actually wanted to drive one of these, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to do so. So viewers, the Triumph Acclaim, probably much maligned as transport of the very old and very boring, particularly one in beige like this with a beige interior. Is this a car that you should consider of your hard-earned budget of up to £5,000 as a sensible second-hand classic? Well, the only problem with these, apart from rust, which is obvious, is the parts availability. There's very few of these left, and this engine was used in some other Civics, and you know, variations of it were used in a few other cars as well, but there's just not many left. I mean, a lot of them just got scrapped because they succumbed to rust and other problems. But if you can find one, they're actually really nice to drive. They're quite easy to park, and they're very endearing in a way that they wouldn't have been 20 years ago. I can absolutely understand why Matthew wants to keep this car as long as he can. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this short notice episode of Sensible Secondhand Classics. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. And we'll see you again soon for more wallet-friendly, nostalgic motoring.